The Buccaneers fail across the board, losing to the Steelers 20-18. We tell you what has to change for the offense to become a threat in the red zone once again. And David weighs in on Tom Brady playing as poorly as he did. Let's go.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome to the Locked On Bucs Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And we thank you for making us your first listen or view of the day. I am James Yarcho, joined by my Heinz Field attending co-host, David Harrison. You can check out his work over at BucsGameDay.com. Check out my stuff over at BucsNation.com. And, of course, follow along on Twitter at LockedOnBucs, at JYarcho_Bucs, and at DHarrison82. Again, we thank you for making the Locked On Bucs podcast your first listen or view every day. Today's episode of Locked On Bucs is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you could win up to 10 times your money on any entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code Locked On. We will tell you how the Steelers managed to shred the Bucs defense late in the game, coming up in just a moment. But David, let's start with the offensive side of the ball. In my live postcast, I pointed to a lot of issues that the offense had on Sunday. But let's start with what I think was the biggest issue on Sunday and has been the biggest issue throughout the season now, and that is the red zone. The Buccaneers were 1 for 4 on Sunday. They're 9 for 19 this season. And if you take out the Chiefs game, they're 5 for 15 in the red zone. What do the Buccaneers need to do to get this red zone offense actually on track?
Honestly, they're going to have to start being a little bit more creative in their play design and their play calling, and they're also going to be a little bit more physical. And I'm not necessarily talking up front, although that would be very helpful as well as being more physical and being more successfully physical up front. But look, there's many parts of this team. There's many units in this team, and it's on the guys in the locker room to basically pick each other up. So if the offensive line isn't pushing the defensive line back enough to get these short runs that they need to get, then the tight ends got to come in and pick up some of that slack. If the tight ends aren't doing it, then the receivers got to find a way to get open better. If the receivers aren't doing it, then the running backs got to go out there and either run harder. Not saying that they're not running hard, but it's one of those situations where we all know that the Buccaneers are not operating with an offensive line that they planned on operating with coming into this season, as far as Ryan Jensen especially being gone. And we talked about this when Ryan got injured, and it goes so much further beyond what just Ryan Jensen does as a player. But I know we're going to talk about offensive line, so I'll kind of save that for then. But I think really it's a matter of you have who you have, right? And we hear losing teams say this a lot when it's like, hey, how are you going to get better at this? How are you going to get better at that? There's no secret weapon walking through the door, right? The only player out there on the open market that could potentially come in and make a drastic change to anybody's offense is Odell Beckham Jr. And honestly, is Odell Beckham Jr. even going to come in and solve some of the issues that the Buccaneers are having? I don't know if they do, especially in the red zone. I heard you talk about getting Mike Evans more involved, and I think there comes a time where, Tom Brady is kind of known for, I take the open guy, I make the open read, and Byron Leftwich, he loves that kind of approach of, let's not force feed somebody. But when you're being unsuccessful as much as this team is, you almost have to kind of get to the point where you say, you know what, we're not winning with everybody else. We're not making these plays with everybody else. We got to force feed the stars, and we got to prove to everybody, show everybody again why they were stars in the first place. And, to make an NBA analogy, if Scotty and Dennis and Tony Kukoc aren't getting it done, you got to feed MJ. Everybody on the court knows you're going to do it. They know he's the best on the court. They're going to double him. They're going to triple him. They're going to try to keep the ball away from him. But you got to feed him anyway, and you got to let greatness go be great. And I think that's what you have to do right now with guys like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin in the red zone while these other guys kind of catch up.
Tom Brady, I talked about this as well. He struggled early on, and honestly, he hasn't looked good all season. I expressed my concern that some of these little things, you and I were there at training camp when he started his 11-day absence. He's getting these days off through the week, flying to weddings on a Friday night. And you and I typically, and I think most people would go, it's Tom Brady. You really don't need to worry about it. He's going to have it figured out. We brush it off because he's Tom Brady. Is it time to stop brushing it off based on his performance early this year and think maybe Father Time has finally caught up to him, or just that mentally he's not in it the way we all kind of assumed he was?
No, I don't think it is, to be quite honest with you. I think Tom, from a performance ability standpoint, right, is fine. I think what you're seeing right now and what I think I saw against the Pittsburgh Steelers specifically is a lack of trust in the offensive line. And I know that, everybody saw the clip of him even, in the press box. It was making its rounds. I think we can shout out to Trevor Sycamore for that. I think he shared it, and it basically just went loose from there of Tom, chewing his offensive linemen's butts during the game. I think that's what you're seeing. I think you're starting to see everybody kind of laughed at who was, I think it was Sam Darnold, right? His rookie season, when said, I'm out there seeing ghosts. I think that's basically what Tom is going through. And some of these throws, I remember there was a specific throw where he had a relatively clean pocket, threw the ball away. And we were all kind of stunned. We're like, you're going to throw the ball away when you're in a pocket like that? And basically, if you look at it, I almost kind of look at this as pass rushers going against this offensive line in the mind of Tom Brady almost have one or two extra steps than they actually do have. So when we see a clean pocket, Tom Brady sees a guy that's one or two steps away from breaking through and creaming him. So he's going to get rid of the ball. When a guy is one step through his offensive line, Tom sees a guy that's on top of him. So he's reacting as such. And then when he's getting sacked, then he starts yelling at people. I think that's really what we're seeing here is that Tom just doesn't have confidence in the five that are in front of him. And it may be limited to one or two guys. You know what I mean? And again, I know we have to get deeper into that, but I think that's really what we're seeing is an offense or a quarterback that is playing behind an offensive line that he doesn't have the total faith in to protect him right now because he knows he can't escape. So if he knows he doesn't believe his guys can protect him enough, then the only weapon he has to protect himself, which is how he's made his living this entire time, how he stayed so healthy, is by protecting himself, by being smart, is to get rid of the ball. And I think that's what we're starting to see.
Well, and you've already touched on it a couple of different ways, but let's dive straight in. How much of the offensive line playing as poorly as they are is playing into how bad this Buccaneers offense has been?
It's all of it. And that's obvious, at least, in my mindset, because again, everything we're talking about, right? Red zone, how do you score better in the red zone? How does Tom Brady play better? It's all coming back to the offensive line, which means the offensive line problems are plaguing the entire offense. And really, that's not a surprise because, right, there's a saying in football that if you're really good in the trenches, it's hard to be really bad. Well, I think the flip side of that works too. If you're bad in the trenches, it's really hard to be good. And right now, I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers maybe aren't the worst offensive line in the National Football League, but I think you're 16 to 20. You know what I mean? Probably somewhere in that range, I would probably put you right now. And that's not necessarily everybody, right? Like some of these guys are certainly talented. But I think that everybody's riding on rookie Luke Gedeke. And I think that was said in the press conference or the press box today. Luke Gedeke. And I think there's something to be said about it. But James, we talked about this during training camp, and I don't remember if we said it on the Locked On Bucs podcast or we just kind of talked, we were in Tampa together, staying in the same Airbnb. But we talked about this. With a rookie offensive lineman, especially, once you put him in there, you really can't take him out. Because if you take this kid out, I mean, it's his first year in the National Football League. It's his first year playing on an NFL offensive line. He's trying to get used to these guys. He's protecting the GOAT. He's already got all this pressure on him. You go through and you pull him and kind of take him through the mental stress and anxiety of being benched. Now you're adding that onto everything else, and you're kind of getting that zone where did you maybe rush him in there too early? Now are you going to kind of risk breaking this guy before he really gets his career going? I think that's where the Buccaneers kind of are right now is they made a decision to roll with him, over a Nick Leverett, for example. And now they're in a situation where if we pull him, because I think when you talk about rookies, you have to go full speed one way or the other. So if you're going to start him, you got to put your full support behind him and you got to give him the opportunities to get better because he's a rookie. But if you come to the decision, you say, all right, dude, like we've given you enough time. We can't wait anymore. So we're going to pull you. It's got to be done. You can't have Nick Leverett, for example, go out there for 4 weeks and then get 4 wins maybe and say, okay, now we're going to put Luke back out there, give it a shot. You can't play that waffle back and forth game. So the Buccaneers right now, I think you're in a tough spot because he's not the only one, right, that's having some issues, but I think he's the biggest one. But if you pull him, it's got to be for the year. Like minus injury, that's got to be it. Maybe next year he comes in and battles for the job again. But as far as 2022 is concerned, if you pull him, it's got to be now. And do you really want to do that a third of the way through the season, or do you want to at least wait until you get a couple more weeks in you?
You want to wait until Ryan Jensen comes back, and then you can slide Robert Hainsey over and not have to worry about it. But
that would be great.
That would be ideal. We're going to flip sides of the ball. We're going to talk about some of the struggles that the defense had coming up in just a moment. But first, getting a little bit older, David and I both can relate. You're not what you used to be when you were at your peak self. Maybe you're having a little bit of trouble keeping up with the kids or getting out of bed in the morning without some of those aches and pains. But if you want more energy to counter the negative physical effects of aging, Nugenix Total T Testosterone Booster with Testofen will help you turn back the clock and re-energize your workouts, get you better results at the gym, and help you look and feel like the man you really want to be. While every product professes quality, many other products use generic ingredients that are often far less than clinical grade. With Nugenix Total T, you can get the same clinical potency levels used in the trials. And Nugenix's formulation is backed by 10 years of science and research. Nugenix Total T is the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC, and Nugenix Total T can help you re-energize your life and help you get back to the powerful, confident, good-looking warrior you used to be. Now, get a complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T when you text NFL to 231-231. Text now and get a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, their most powerful fat incinerator ever, with key ingredients to help you get back into shape fast. Absolutely free. Text NFL to 231-231. Text NFL to 231-231. Message and data rates may apply. Terms apply. Available at nugenix.com/term. Our next partner has a product that I use literally every day. I started taking AG1 because with my crazy sleep and work schedule, it can be really difficult to make sure that I'm eating right and getting enough sleep. With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. So all of the things. It's a great way for me to kick off my super early mornings as I drink one on my way to the depot to get my workday started. It supports better sleep quality and recovery. It supports mental clarity and alertness. And it's the one thing with the best things. Athletic Greens uses the best of the best products based on the latest science with constant product iterations and third-party testing. Tons of people take some kind of multivitamin, and it's important to choose one with high-quality ingredients that your body will actually absorb. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. I mix mine with a little bit of apple juice. David's a pineapple juice guy, but that's it. There's no need for a million different pills or supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NFL Network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NFL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen every day. Make sure you check out NFL Key Predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL. Locked On's local experts give you the inside scoop on the 5 biggest games of the NFL weekend, including Sunday and Monday Night Football, plus betting advice from the field's leading experts, BetOnline. Follow NFL Key Predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. David, let's flip sides of the ball and talk a little defense. You know, the defense that gave up Kenny Pickett's first career passing touchdown on a blown coverage, and a defense that allowed Mitch Trubisky to convert, 3rd and 15, and 3rd and 13, and 3rd and 11. Is it time for Todd Bowles to relinquish play calling and just focus on being a head coach?
So I'll say this. You already know that I'm a person that believes that a head coach needs to focus on being a head coach. If you're focusing on being a defensive or an offensive coordinator at the same time, I mean, look, I know they all give somebody else that title and all that stuff, but let's be real about it here. If you're the head coach and you're calling the offensive plays, or you're the head coach and you're calling the defensive plays, you're coordinating. Like, you're not going to go in there and say, okay, Casey Rogers or anybody else, what did you coordinate for the game? And then let me go call it. That doesn't make any sense. You're in the game planning process. You're in the process of putting things together, which means that you're not looking holistically, right? And at the same time, when your offense is struggling, I mean, if you're a head coach and you have a struggling offense, I think three and outs, right? The very first drive of the game is a 3 and out. And then you have 2 more going from there. You're already struggling to get in the red zone. You're struggling just to get in square in position. Now you've got 3 and outs happening. How can you possibly go work with your offense and your offensive coordinator and your quarterback when you're calling the defense? You can't. Like, that's honestly, like, you just can't. It's not even a matter of can you be a multitasker, because there's no multitasking available. You're calling a defense. You have to be locked into what you're doing. So that's always been my problem with head coaches that also call one side or the other. Now, with that being said, what I will say is that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, this wasn't a scheme issue today. This wasn't a play calling issue today. This was an execution issue. You look at the touchdown to Najee Harris. Devin White is not supposed to be where he is on that play. He's supposed to be guarding the running back. He lets Najee Harris get out the back door because he comes in to fill in. I think he was trying to fill the B gap. Najee Harris isn't there, so I don't know why you're there. There's no running back there. You're rushing the running back. Why are you in that gap? And I might be wrong on which gap it was, but while he's busy doing that, Najee Harris slipping out the backside of the formation, getting a wide open, easy walk-in touchdown to give, like you said, Kenny Pickett his first of his career. And look, honestly, I love Devin White, but that wasn't his first or his only bad play of the game. And we talked to him in the locker room afterwards, and he basically kind of said, you don't always know where the running back is. You're trying to look for him. You're trying to find them, but sometimes it's hard to find them. I mean, look, you're an NFL linebacker, and to be honest, this goes back to the conversation we had just a few days ago. When your talk starts becoming bigger than your play, there's a problem. And your team's 3-3, bro. And don't get me wrong, today he didn't talk. Like, today wasn't in the locker room talking about all this and all that. But your team is 3-3. They were 3-2 when you were talking all that. You know what I'm saying? So again, this team, I think, needs to get refocused into what their job is. And I don't mean all of them. Some of them are locked in, but by and large, as a unit, they need to get each other back locked in, back hungry, because what I'm seeing is a team that really just has a problem of want to versus able to.
Yeah. Carlton Davis, number 1 corner, you know, he's the guy. He got his bag. I will say this before I dive in on Davis. The run defense looked much better, only allowed 77 yards. Mm-hmm. But Carlton Davis was the victim of a lot of those third down targets.
Yep.
And he wasn't there to stop it. He wasn't making a play. He wasn't living up to his end of the contract that he got. Is this, do you think, this is also a guy I'll say missed part of the last 2 games with a hip injury, has been dealing with that. Do you think his performance against the Steelers was an injury issue, or was he flat out just outplayed by the receivers that he was guarding, namely Chase Claypool and I think Deontay Johnson beat him a couple of times. And Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett, did they just have Davis's number?
Yeah, I mean, Chase had a great day, and you can tell Beckett. So Beckett's a Notre Dame fan, for everybody out there who doesn't know, but I went ahead and threw Chase a little, good game in the tunnel after the game, and so I want to pass that on to Beckett. And in spirit, I did it for Beckett and as a Notre Dame fan, so you can let him know that. But yeah, Chase Claypool actually absolutely had a day, and a lot of those were against Carlton Davis. Look, there was one of the plays, one of the third down conversions, as was on the near sideline, and it was to Chase, and it was kind of the toe tapper. Again, the angle that we have, the sideline kind of blocks our view, so we were dependent on the big screen for whether or not he got his feet in and all that stuff. Obviously, he did end up getting his feet in. But to me, man, I think the injuries are hindering Carlton. You know what I mean? Not to the point where he can't necessarily go out there and play. And maybe 80% of Carlton Davis is better than 100% of some of these other guys, and that's fair. But I think absolutely today, because we saw that the Steelers were willing to run deep, look deep. They didn't necessarily target deep all the time, but they were definitely showing the Bucs Stevens that they were willing to go there if they allowed them the opportunity to do so. And late in the game, I think that's what you kind of saw as a team that was looking to kind of make sure that they kept everything in front of them. And yeah, the transition points, the moving from back pedal to coverage to breaking down on a ball, Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson and those opportunities we're just able to make better breaks. And I think it's indicative a lot of time of health, because certainly not effort. And I want to be clear, like when we talk about potential, a unit that has a lack of want to, I'm not talking about everybody. I'm not even necessarily calling one person out over the other. I mean, I think that Devin's been talking maybe a little too much than he should be for a team that's in this position and a player that's kind of making some of the mistakes that he's making. But that doesn't mean I think Devin White doesn't have the want to. I think, that he's got some juice. But look, Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean, both your number one, number two quarterback, they were the guys that chased down Steven Sims. Now, granted, you don't want Sims running that deep on the second half kickoff anyway, but to see your number one and two corners going out there and making that play. Oh, by the way, now the Steelers offense is on the field and the defense needs to stop them from scoring touchdown, which they did. So there's heart there. It's just, it seems to be less bully ball, which is what we kind of saw during that Super Bowl run, and more just kind of will make a play eventually. And it looks like a unit that basically is relying on the fact that we're okay because eventually one of us is going to make a play, instead of being hungry to go make that play.
Well, we're going to talk about one of the other major differences between this Buccaneers team and some in recent memory. But first, we have to give a shout out to our friends at Prize Picks. How does it work? You pick 5 players, and if they will score more or less than their Prize Picks projections, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing with other people. It's just you against the projections available. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you can watch. That includes the NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's and women's college basketball. You could probably do it for Tom Brady's new pickleball team. There's so many different options. They have safe and fast withdrawals currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Just download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com and sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will too. $50, $75, $25, $30, any amount up to $100. Prize Picks will match you as long as you enter promo code Locked On at sign up for that instant deposit match. Wrapping things up here on a sad episode of the Locked On Bucs podcast. David, I spent a large part of my immediate live postcast talking about something that's kind of been sticking in my brain a little bit, and it really came to fruition today. One of the biggest differences between the 2022 Bucs and the ones in 2021, 2020, outside of Antonio Brown being gone and Dominican Sue, Rob Gronkowski, is Bruce Arians.
Yeah.
Bruce Arians isn't the guy roaming that sideline anymore. He's not the guy that has his hand in the offense, helping Byron Leftwich along, allowing Todd to focus strictly on the defense instead of all of the responsibilities that come with being a head coach. Is this Buccaneers team 3-3 through 6 weeks if Bruce Arians didn't step away?
Honestly, they might be. And honestly, they might be 2-4, because when I look at what's plaguing this Buccaneers team, and again, this is from purely my perspective. So if you disagree with what I think is happening, especially with the offense, you're going to disagree with what I'm going to say here. But if the problem really does resonate or start or root with the offensive line, Bruce Arians, again, he didn't get his no risk it, no biscuit, nickname or motto or whatever you want to call it, tagline from nowhere. And I just kind of wonder, because I heard you talk about that, and kind of got me thinking, I almost wonder if he were still running, the entire show, if he might be saying, look, you're an offensive lineman, go block, go protect our passer. And you're seeing sacks, more sacks. You're seeing more maybe strip sacks because, Tom's trying to throw, or maybe even an injury to Tom because he's in the act of throwing. Or he's trying to stand there in the pocket and he's getting the ball out when he shouldn't be. I just wonder, if you make a quarterback who's already playing with the suspect offensive line hold the ball even longer, waiting for deep routes to develop more often than what this team is asking him to do right now, I think the results could be more disastrous, to be honest with you. I know people want to see this team push the ball down the field, but again, I really do believe what you're seeing is an offense that doesn't have faith in their offensive line right now, and that's why you're seeing the overemphasis on the run. You're seeing more screens than I think people like to see. You're seeing some end arounds because And James, we've had this conversation about some other quarterbacks in some bad offensive line situations, but a lot of times when you have a suspect offensive line, what do? You try to move the pocket. You bootleg the quarterback, or you do some option stuff, or you do some rollouts. You know what I mean? You can't do that with Tom. Like, Tom's a statue. So what your options when you have a quarterback like Tom and you have an offensive line problem, you still want to try to move the defense side to side, tire them out a little bit. Don't let them just run a straight line towards your quarterback. So how do you do that? You do it with sweeps. Well, honestly, can you point to the running back on this roster that is really going to threaten the edge on a consistent basis? Like, Leonard Fournette is not a burner. He's not a guy that can just boom, hit the edge quickly if you lose contain and take it down the field. Rashad White, maybe a little bit more suited to it, but he's not that guy either. He's definitely still more of a north and south type runner. Keyshawn Vaughn, we haven't seen anything from, just because of, apparently the team just doesn't believe he's going to bring any value to the field. So really what you're left with is occasional end arounds, right? We saw them try to run that with Chris Godwin today, and I think it probably wouldn't have worked, to be quite honest with you, but a penalty actually kind of saved them, because instead of having 2nd and 12 or 13, they ended up with 1st and 15, which I know sounds weird, but to me, that's a better situation. Screens, that's where the screens are coming from, because you're trying to get the defense to have to cover the entirety of the field, because if you're only running between the tackles, you're only throwing the ball downfield on traditional routes and combinations, then as a pass rusher, your job gets a lot easier. So you have to find a way to try to threaten the edges. And when you have an immobile quarterback, there's only so many ways you can do it.
That's a really interesting way of looking at this. And honestly, as much as I've thought about it, I didn't really think about the flip side of that coin, and that the Arians style may put Brady and the offense in even more danger than they put themselves in. And I was extremely critical of the vanilla, predictable play calling, that there's nothing that we've seen that makes you think that anything's going to change any sooner. But you're 100% right. The way Arians likes to air it out and go deep with this offensive line, it may have spelled more doom than success. I do have to mention, though, I have to laugh at the moniker that was going around on Twitter as I was running the Bucs Nation Twitter account. No biscuit, no biscuit is the Byron Leftwich slogan.
Oh, that's so wrong. But I mean, I get it. But, I really do. I think that's what you're seeing. I think that's why you're seeing this over-reliance on the run, the over-reliance on kind of the screen game and the quick game. And I think that's why you're seeing Tom, dirt some of these balls. Again, when you're trying to go through your throwing motion too fast, right? What tends to happen? What's more likely to happen? That you release the ball early, or that you release the ball late? Well, I would say you're more likely to release the ball late, because your arm motion is accelerated. Your decision to throw the ball is ahead of your mental processing. So when your brain says, boom, here's when you throw it, your hand is already forward. So that's why you're seeing so many low balls. And again, and I could be wrong, but that's what I'm seeing on the field. And I, if you have that kind of a situation, I just don't understand. I don't quite see how else you go about trying to protect your quarterback and run some offense, but it's obviously not going to work for the long haul. It's obviously not something that's sustainable. They have to figure out another way to do it, but they've got to do it within the framework of what they have. Because again, Ali Marpet's not coming back. Ryan Jensen's not walking back through that door anytime soon that we know of. So right now, they have what they have. I think that's why you're seeing the offense that you're seeing, and the execution is going to struggle, because defense is it's vanilla. It's much more simple, and it's an easier defense to run against this type of offense. Because listen, if Byron Leftwich is an NFL quarterback, Tom Brady is the greatest to do whatever. If you don't think those two guys want to take advantage of having third string practice squad type cornerbacks on the field in Pittsburgh Steelers defense, then you're just underselling the level of competitiveness that it takes to be in the National Football League. So this isn't about whether or not Byron and Tom want to push the ball. It's whether they feel like they can push the ball. And again, then you go through some of the throws. That's why I think this is all on the offensive line, not from a blame standpoint, but I think the lack of confidence is there. It's significant, and it's impacting the offense.
We want to thank you for making the Locked On Bucs podcast your first listen or view of the day. Now make your second listen or view the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson give you the expert NFL analysis in less than 30 minutes. It is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We will be back tomorrow. We'll be stashing it. We'll be trashing it. We'll be talking more about this very upsetting and disappointing game from your 3-3 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If you have reactions, thoughts, anything at all to what I said in the postcast or David said here. Of course, you can give us a call at 813-444-5841. Check out David's work over at BucsGameDay.com. Check my stuff out at BucsNation.com. And, of course, follow everything on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarcho_Bucs, and at DHarrison82. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. We thank you so much for joining us right here at Locked On Bucs.